Okay, we're gonna officially restart this stream. And I feel silly, but here we are. I forgot to change the stream information, so I was just showing like I was playing Final Fantasy V, which I do, but not tonight. Um, so hello, we're restarting the stream. So for all intents and purposes, those of you whom are watching this after the fact, via on demand or what have you, um, you will see this as the start of the stream, and all of the stuff I did before is going to be null and void. And so I'm just going to kind of go over what I already went over. So for those of you who might have been watching from the start, I apologize, but here we go. So Monday, out of the Abyss, the group is in Sloop-Dodop. Previously, they had fought two Etten. We had a short game last week. Then they fought a group of Kuotoa cultists. Now they're on their way, or rather, they are at the tomb where they're fetching a secret statue for the quote-unquote good and not demon-worshipping Kuotoa. The statue is just symbolic, but meant to reinvigorate the worship of the Kuotoa god Old General. That's a Simpsons reference. So the group started to explore the tomb. They will find a sentient sun sword there, maybe make the fights harder. 4 specters, 1 white. I cannot remember, but we're going to just kind of spruce up the fights because the group is a little bit tougher than your average out of the Abyss group at this point. Homework. I need to prepare some things on Roll20 as we have transitioned to that platform. And then we will hopefully figure out how to use the classroom projector, given that there will be people zooming in. We had a student who moved away but can play remotely, and so that's going to help a lot. Homework in bullet points, we got to figure out encounters so that the not as tough encounters in that tomb are going to be a little tougher and a little bit more challenging, and then figure out Roll20 prep. Maybe add some fun songs that I can use. Tuesday game, Klaus the Gnome. We haven't played in a while, so all of this information is still relevant, still censored. So that Looney, who will probably show up soon, won't get to see this, as it is a surprise. Our Wednesday game, Dawn of Fae. So the kiddo who wanted to play an evil character has moved on to another character. Problem solved. So we're talking the youngest of this group of kids. The first Wednesday game, the Dawn of Fae game, is a game of mostly like middle school and younger kids, and so that their attention span is a little not as developed, let's say, and it's all developmentally appropriate for their ages. So it's not like it's anything like that, but they certainly are a very energetic group. Let's put it that way. So we're doing kind of a variation on the Sunless Citadel. I was gonna put them through the actual Sunless Citadel as it appears in the what is the book, Tales from the Yawning Portal. Oh my god. Hello, Sojaro SP rate of 12. How is everyone doing? That's a lot of people. At least for this channel it is. I should not be here. Hard Mard, that is correct. I can't stay, don't want to get spoiled on D&D. Hey, how about I just skip that one for this week? And maybe I'll just go back and do that planning independently. Have a good night, though. Well, yep, absolutely. So yeah, if y'all are leaving, then I guess that's that. But thank you for rating for sure. That's fantastic. For those of you just joining us, we are talking about Dungeons and Dragons planning. I run approximately 8 games a week, though that could be due to change soon, which would be unfortunate because I'd have to rename the stream, but hey, them's the breaks. Right now we're talking about our Wednesday game, in which I run, and if I scroll just a skosh down, like it's the start of the Dreams of Myth and Uldrenor, which is the game that I run Sojaro on, actually, and Hard March. So y'all were really good on your timing for what it's worth. But anyhow, going back over the first Wednesday game, Dawn of Fae, we're doing the Sunless Citadel, but we didn't use the original map because that was a lot for this group of younger slanted players. There's a handful of adults in the group, but it's useful to have something that's a little bit more focused. So actually, let me write this down because this is kind of relevant. 5-room dungeon method. I don't know why that sounds like something you would hear like from a marriage counselor in the 50s. Not the dungeon part, but like the 5-room method. Anyway, I like to run a dungeon that's 5 rooms. Not really any more, not really any less. Because that gets kind of the point of the dungeon across. You can have like a puzzle room. You can have like maybe 2 encounter rooms. You can have a room that's just there for flavor. Like maybe you run into a room that's like a study or a library or like a reflecting pool where you can talk to like some supernatural creature through it. And then you have a boss battle. And that's honestly all that, let's face it, all I have the attention span for. Because I don't like long dungeons. I'm not big for it. There's kind of a time and a place for a big old long dungeon. But I feel like that's a different era of D&D and not maybe one that this edition, 5th edition specifically, is really geared towards. And I don't think that people who play D&D now are big on big dungeons. It's just not the oeuvre right now. Most of the people who are getting into it now are getting in because they are experiencing a much more story-based one. And there's only so much story you can have in a big old dungeon with lots and lots of rooms and hallways. It's possible to have a dungeon with personality and vibrant like characters and so on, but then it stops being a dungeon and it starts being like a lived-in city or something. I don't know, and I'm probably going on and on about this, but anyways, I'm just gonna speak out loud real quick. So Jaro, I see that you're in the room, but like give a peep if you are still here, so that I can like do what I did for Looney's bit and censor it and then just move on. Or if you don't respond, I'll presume that I can go on with impunity and that you will not be spoiled. So I'm just going to give you a minute to respond. In the meantime, how is everybody doing? I hope y'all are having a great night. I hope y'all are kind of interested, at least in the topic of D&D campaign planning. I do run 8 games a week. Nominally, the holidays have made that a little difficult because of planning and travel and illness and so on. And so I haven't been running the 8 games as much. There's been like a lot of breaks, but it's been okay, and I think we're kind of gearing back up to get to that point. I think I'll have a little bit of a discussion towards the end of the stream about what to do if a game might need to be let go, and I'm kind of approaching that with a game, and we'll talk about it when we get to it. But yeah, there's just some really interesting things about running games. I've only been so careful, so busy with game running since the pandemic started. I used to run like maybe 3 games a week max. That was like the most that I would do. And then the pandemic hit and people needed games to be run for them, and all of a sudden I found myself running 8. Like at one point I was running 9, and the only reason I was running so many is that 2 of the groups actually offered to pay me, which almost never happens. Like I got paid to run games when I was doing it as a school activity at one of my previous jobs, and I was able to convince people to the people in charge at large, what am I saying, to pay me to run games. And so that was a thing. But like for a group to just be like, hey, we'll pay you to run D&D, that didn't happen a long time ago. And I know it's a thing now, but like I was floored that anyone would want to do that. Okay, I'm gonna take Sojaro's silence to mean that he is not paying attention, and so I can go on to the next part. For those of you who might be interested, this is the game I run Sojaro on, and so there's kind of some interesting juicy tidbits in here. All right, this is some like real interesting stuff that I'm glad is not being spoiled. Let's see. So I'm gonna delete this stuff, not so much because, oh man, I still haven't done that bit of homework. but not so much because this is spoiler, although it is. I just want to kind of get a fresh slate on this. So currently, let's do kind of like a on the last Dragon Ball Z. On the last Dragon Ball Z. We had the group return to Myth Branner with refugees. Ran into Elven Trio from nearby and somewhat secret Elven civilization. There was no combat last game, and I just realized that now. No combat, just talking. Whoops. Planning. Mentorship of Ogre Warlock in training. And a triple 19 roll that disappeared a magical fortune telling chair. That all sounds crazy, but it's actually what happened. At the end of the session, weird bright blue light like a second sun shown, and this will be a temporal anomaly. Now I know exactly what I want to do with this temporal anomaly, but I'm actually going to skip that part for now because this, we really are getting into some spoilery territory. But I have an exact idea that normally I would write down. But why don't we just kind of expand on it in a way that is not terribly spoilery? So another 5-room dungeon. I can't remember if I had this conversation about the 5-room dungeon after the raid came in, but yeah, 5-room dungeon. Why don't we just do this right now? First room, puzzle. Second room, encounter. Whoops. And as I'm thinking about it, I may actually use an old 5-room dungeon that I had from older game that I ran. And sometimes I'll save stuff like that, and it's really cool. Actually, you know what? This is a perfect time to bullet point. So let's bullet point. 5-room dungeon, first room, gravity puzzle. I know what that means. I can just type that in there because I'm not going to spoil anything. I can tell you gravity puzzle. That won't mean anything to you. That means something to me. Room 2 is going to be pyro. Shoot, sorry. Crackle. Nykus. Pyronychus, what does that mean? Someone can guess, but you don't know, only I know. Probably. Pyronychus, whoops, and pillars. Third room, we're gonna go with another puzzle, and I'm gonna say, let's see, gravity puzzle, Pyronychus. Let's go with a treasure puzzle. Animated with Switch. This is one of those wacky things that I'm just thinking up on the fly, and I'm going to come back and look at this note and say, animated with Switch. What does that mean? Hopefully I'll remember. Probably I won't. Another encounter. Let's see. We're gonna make this encounter should be interesting, and let's face it, we should really make it time oriented. What's a way to do that? Yes, Looney, you are spoiler safe. I've already gone over the bit with the bit for Klaus the Gnome, so you are fine. Welcome. We got raided by Sojaro, so there's a bunch of people in the room. So we're talking about actually the game I run Sojaro on, and so we're just about done. But yeah, here we go. Encounter, huh? So this should be time oriented. Oh, this will be fun. Quickling plus let's just call it slowling. Casts slow. Boss. And we might not get to the boss. In fact, I'd be really curious to see if we couldn't time this to where the boss would come into play at the start of the following session, but we'll see. Maybe it will time out where they can do the 5 rooms and the boss, and that won't be a strain on time. But we'll figure it out. It is all a rolling methodology. But there we go. Not a lot of spoilery stuff here, so we're good. I don't know if Sojaro's listening. Maybe I'll type a thing in chat at Sojaro. Come on. Spoiler part is over. Okay. So now we are on to the Thursday game. Sam, if you're watching, this is for you. Don't watch or listen. So, yeah. All right. 2 weeks ago, Dragon Wings and Blood Noodles, but we've gotten through that. Let's just go ahead. I'm gonna. We didn't end up using a lot of this, but last week Gakwa. We'll just call it Gakwa Fight. Arkugadra. Gifted a let's see. Gifted a rune cutter to group after they defeated Daznalov and spared the Gakwa's life, convincing it to find purpose in the astral plane. Oh lordy lord, the blood noodles, brr. Yeah, blood noodles are creepy. It's funny that the worst part of that session was not the dragon dongs, but the blood noodles. That was the creepiest part of that session. Alright. So again, this is like super spoilery, but they have the rune cutter. So I'm just gonna delete this because now there's a lot more to kind of figure out. Actually, no, let's not. This is still somewhat applicable. Rune cutter can destroy the rune heart. Might change trajectory of game, but that's okay. But I guess this is going to be like change the trajectory, learn your grammar. Anyways, likely outcome. So you know what? We'll. Oh man, there's good stuff here. All right, let's just. Sorry, I need to organize my thoughts here. like specifically and very carefully. No, come on. Okay, likely outcome. Dungeons and Dragons. Psh, more like Dragon Dongs and Blood Noodles. Yeah, absolutely, Dragon Dongs and Blood Noodles. One of my players for the Thursday game, by the way, is like looking to see if she can find blood, like pig's blood or something, in a barber shop, in a butcher shop, to make actual blood noodles, because apparently there's a recipe where you can substitute blood instead of eggs, like make egg noodles, but substitute equal parts blood and make literal blood noodles. And that's a thing we might have to eat at some point. No, stop. Okay, so likely outcome: kill Shantico. No, all right. Let's start. Rune cut, rune heart. Free Zoliad. Zoliad's the big bad of the campaign, although the group might. I think they suspect it but don't know it yet exactly. Free Zoliad. Kill Shantico. Shantico Essence shunted to Balgor Wastelands. Dragon Dongs and Blood Noodles sounds like a good name for a black metal band. I think we made that joke during the game session, and it was something like Blood Noodle, but it was like every vowel had a umlaut or something. So yeah. Okay, so Shantico's essence. So let me kind of fill everybody in. Zoliad is an ancient wizard who got trapped in an artifact. He's bad news. He's very bad. He's very powerful. He's just an ancient wizard from a terrible time of trouble. That bringing him into the future would be. It's kind of like my Demolition Man. He's going to be that like Wesley Snipes character of like coming into this future that's not ready for him because he's just that much more badass. Shantico is a demigod that was like demoted a long time ago for being obnoxious. So Shantico was trying to come back and use the rune heart to kind of like re-elevate himself to god status. The group was like them and their dog to kind of foiled Shantico's plans, and now it's gonna result in Shantico's death. But now Zoliad's free. So Shantico's essence is going to go to the Balgor Wastelands, which is like a radioactive desert that was left behind from the Elf-Dwarf Wars, which is the time that that Zoliad is from. So all of this is coming together. All of this is culminating. And as we're going through all of this, we're actually heading towards a very interesting end game. And I wonder, I might have to have a conversation. In fact, let's just go ahead and throw a little bit in there. Conversation about how much longer the group wants the game to last. Because I don't want to shortchange them. And I don't want them to feel like they got cheated, but we're like at just right around a year of having run the game. And we could hit that mark, because I think we started in March of 2021. We could hit that mark and then end the game, and that might be an organic place to stop. But maybe the players are like, no, we love this and we don't want this to stop. Maybe I'm gonna have to tack on some more, but that's a conversation actually I've been finding myself having with a lot of my groups recently. Because since the pandemic started, I've finished like 5 campaigns. Prior to the pandemic starting, I might have finished 5 campaigns in 15 years. That tells you just the kind of game playing I've been doing the last 2 years. It's insane. It's ridiculous. It's great. I'm not complaining about the aspect of running all of these games, because it's been really awesome. But it's just crazy how much more I'm doing, and I don't know if it's ever going to slow down. Like, I think I've kind of insinuated myself into this place where I'm just running games constantly, and I actually kind of like it. But I don't know. Like, it might slow down as people kind of pull away from this hobby as maybe eventually COVID dies down and people stop being bread makers and cross stitchers. But we'll see. I don't know. Maybe I've just this is just the lifestyle I have forever, and that would not be a bad thing. Clearly, I'm reading from the chat. Clearly, if you have a Simon Phoenix character, you need a good guy that yells "Phoenix" every 20 minutes and also exclaims "Send a maniac to catch a maniac" every once in a while. Amazing. I'm gonna have to do that now. All right, so bullet points. Let's not forget our bullet points. Shantico ascended to Balgor Wasteland. Balgor Wasteland will act as the Spires of Zin Shalast. What does that mean? That just sounds like nonsense, doesn't it? The Spires of Zin Shalast are actually an aspect of this campaign that I had drawn from the original. Like, so let me go back. When I started this campaign, it was meant to be a Rise of the Rune Lords campaign. That's a pre-written Pathfinder Paizo adventure, and I just started like mixing in all of my own elements. Well, I went way off the rails, and they didn't do anything hardly that was from the Rise of the Rune Lords, except for from the first book. But now I'm bringing it back, and the Spires of Zin Shalast were meant to be like a kind of a weird ruined city that used to belong to like this super powerful wizard who embodied the sin of greed. And that was, shoot, I can't remember that dude's name. But anyways, he was the big bad, ultimate evil bad guy of that campaign. And now I get to say, hey, go to the Balgor Wastelands. It's like this magical radioactive place. And you're going to go to these ruins. You're going to go to the central spire. And at the very top of that spire, you're going to fight Zoliad, who's this like super evil bad guy. And it's going to be really cool. So that's a thing. And then, hey, guess what? There's a whole chunk of that book that's all about Zin Shalast that I get to use, and that's going to be really awesome. And that could artificially extend the campaign, because then the group will have to go through the ruins of Zin Shalast. And that could be a whole thing. That could be like maybe a few, let's call that 4 weeks. So that sounds good. I don't want it to be too drawn out. I just might take up bread making and buy my bread delivery tricycle with its horn and stuff, and I'll get to yell El Pan all over the neighborhood. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Conversation about how, yep. Okay. So Balgor Wasteland will act as Spires of Zin Shalast. And we're just going to call it Race to Essence of Shantico. Because I think I want this to be the end of Shantico as an adversary, because he's kind of been the thorn in the group's paw, and they've kind of been dealing with him for like the majority of this campaign. And it's going to be a nice bait and switch to a degree, where there's like, oh, we don't have to fight Shantico, but we do have to fight Zoliad. But in a sense, they are fighting Shantico because it's his essence, but it's not his personality. I don't know. I feel like this is going to funnel the group back into what the campaign was all about in the first place, and maybe that's going to make it feel less like weebly wobbly timey wimey, let's say. Let's see, divided essence. This is just kind of the explanation that brought me to this conclusion from the last time we did this stream. So here we go. Balgor Wastelands. Okay. So there is also an element of like the Shantico cultists who might try, in fact, Shantico cultists, Zoliad, Pontifex, and group. Ooh, I like that. Could lead to a final showdown with the Pontifex. That could be fun. Maybe Pontifex and Zoliad fight, ally? Question mark? I want to bring the Pontifex in. The Pontifex Maximus was a character, a villain that I brought in from another game that never saw its conclusion. That's another story for another time. But I want that conclusion to happen here. I want it to feel interesting. And plus, I've tied the Pontifex in quite a bit. All right, so maybe Sunder sends group of giants envoys to stop the process for the future. Showdown in ancient elven palace, preserved by dimensional anomaly, where Shantico, the mortal, Zoliad, and group will fight. Oh yeah, maybe I will have. I don't know. There's stuff. There is a lot of stuff. Fourth corner, maybe a demon lord that owed Shantico a final favor. Maybe Mantis. Maybe I don't know. There's a lot of interesting things that I could do with this. I'm excited because like this is kind of giving me some direction that I didn't have before. So I prefer to have more options that I can go for, like a different kind of branching options rather than a lot of things that are already in play and the group knows about that they feel like they have to chase. So this is good. This is not a terrible thing. All right. Let's see. Okay, Sam, you can start watching and or listening now. Friday, let's see. Let's delete all of this. Or at least most of it. Layers. Excuse me. All right. Okay. So in the Friday game, Peril and a Beer, this is the one that I was saying I might drop this game eventually. Scheduling conflicts are getting kind of what's the word I'm looking for? They're getting like more. Thank you. They're getting more prevalent. That's the word I was looking for. And so I think it might be a good organic time to stop this game. Like this is honestly a game that's been going for longer than 2 years. This game has been going on certainly since the start of the pandemic, but it actually stretches back to one of my previous jobs, the aforementioned D&D club I was being paid for. But no, I mean, in all honesty, this game's been going on for the better part of 4 years. Might be a good time to stop. You know, the schedules are just getting harder to schedule, and the group is just kind of like they're enjoying the game, but I think it might be like a good breaking off point, and maybe we think about reshuffling who plays when and so on. But that's a consideration. But at least for now, I want to finish this storyline, and I want them to fight a box sob. And Xbox in person. Well, anyways. So we're just gonna do checklists because this is gonna be easier. Okay, so they did the air one. Fire, earth. Okay. Yeah. And so let's just follow up on this. Group will now go to 2 other nodes. And I just have to figure that out. That's not terrible. We'll bring back old NPCs, including Strahd and shoot, what is her name? Angel lady, whose name I forgot. Zariel. It's Zariel. Oops. Will be like a reunion and culminate in the fight against a box sob. Cool. So that'll be fun. That's just planning ahead, and then I don't know what to plan for the next dungeon because I don't know where the group is going to go, but we'll figure it out. And they're not, these ones are not so elaborate. Like the air one was like literally a guardian to a room and then the room, and the room was a boss battle. So I want it to be kind of simple. I don't get a lot of time on those on the Friday game, so like we try and wrap up within 2 hours. So I try and make it kind of succinct. So that's not terrible. All right. So the Saturday game, we're finally kind of winding down towards the end. Last week, I'm just gonna see. A lot happened, and I haven't written about it. So okay. So we'll talk about the DM dilemma. We kind of solved it, and it was not that bad. But let's go over. Okay. Fort Vengeance, Southern Dandy General. That doesn't make any sense, but it does to me. Let's see. Last time. Oh no, I already did that. Group fled Mbala and Nanny Poo-Poo. I swear to God, that's the name of the villain of Umbala in this campaign, Nanny Poo-Poo. Decided to sell to Camp Vengeance. Call in favors from Hag Anka. Let's see, who did they fight last time? It was, shoot. Because they left Fort Vengeance and they ended up running into random encounter, kind of, sort of. Oh, yeah. Trap laid by Nanny, let's just call her. Big statue fight. That was actually a fun fight. Ziggurat, cursed magic items, Night Walker, and that's it actually. Collapse. Next week, Magic Castle might substitute Oma. I still haven't decided. The group is heading towards a magical castle, and I swear I had something in mind for it, but I completely forgot. So now it's this big destination place, and I honestly don't know what I'm going to do. So there's some time. Let's just call this homework. Figure out castle dynamic. Maybe read a bit more through Tomb. Okay. DM dilemma. So let's just call it need other DM. Andrew stepped up. Will run Curse of Strahd. So that'll be fun. Big issue. Figure out who will stay at my table. So that's going to be a big question mark. I don't know who's. I know who wants to go to the other side, but I want to see who's going to end up staying at my table, and that's going to change the dynamic greatly. But we'll figure it out. I know what I want to do. Kind of. We'll kind of get there as we do, but the big thing is just figuring out that dynamic, which could be interesting. It could kind of change my plans, but we'll see. Sunday game. We haven't played a lot, but I've actually had quite a few ideas. So I'm just going to write them down. Ideas. Big City of Damned. Ooze has created a city of aberrations. Former high priests of exiled gods turned into mind flayers. Avatar of Nomos, god of civilization, will challenge the group to depose mind flayers before he is willing to help. This city used to belong to him. I like it. I was gonna do something else about a city of the dead, but I like this better. Big ideas to play up. Non-Euclidean architecture. Low-level aberrations like normal people. So they might not want to just kill the lower-level aberrations. They're just gonna like mill about doing their own thing. Maybe a quote-unquote resistance group, literally and figuratively underground. So that gives us stuff to work with. I want this locale to be interesting and to kind of showcase what this new world is about, and so hopefully this will do it. But that's all I've got for right now for the Sunday game, and that's it. We did the Wingaroth last week. But you know what? I don't think I'm going to do anything in regards to let's see. I don't think I'm going to do anything in regards to like stat building this week unless someone has a request. But let's fold that into our segment, D&D and Q&A, Dungeons and Dragons, and questions and answers. So, if y'all have questions, now is the time to ask. If somebody has a request, if someone's like, I love playing Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, would you turn this into a monster for me, or would you turn that into a magic item for me? I would love to do that. That's a cool thing that I would be happy to do. But if not, I'm here to take your questions. Ask me anything, whether it's about the 8 games I run, how do I do it, whether it's about some obscure D&D lore. Have you ever wondered why some dragons come in metal colors and some dragons come in primary kind of sort of colors? There's no yellow dragon. Ask me. I have questions, yes. Of course, Looney. You're my best question asker so far. I just thought of something while I'm waiting for you to ask your question. Why don't we make resistance group composed of aberrations? Even some intellect devoured people. Yeah, I'm liking this. It really gives the lower level aberrations kind of a personality. They're rebelling against their aberration overlords. They have breaks in their ranks. So for those of you watching and paying attention, I apologize if a lot of what I write and say and do sounds like crazy because you don't have the context for it. I'd like to try and get a little bit more acclimated to just explaining the context of the things that I'm doing, because it's like I'm learning that as we have this ad hoc game of Dungeons and Dragons on Saturdays and people just drop in, things get tremendously complicated in the middle of a campaign, and I have to find myself going like, oh, well, the group got a caravan to deliver goods to this evil city in the middle of the jungle, and then all of a sudden, like, there's just no entry point, and it just feels kind of impenetrable. But hopefully this is fun or interesting to watch, with the lack of some of that context. But if anybody's ever like, hey, I want to know more about this, feel free. All right, but onto the question. Okay, so how plausible is it to build a character that can dual wield weapons, and what are limits to dual wielding? That is an awesome question. Let me tell you why. Dual wielding has been historically a weird thing to do in a Dungeons and Dragons game because innately it kind of feels like you are messing with the game to a degree that like the game doesn't want you to. And I'm not super experienced with D&D editions 2 and older, so I don't know the answer to that with that. But let's just ask the question written style. How plausible is a dual wielding I before E character? So, second and older, question mark. I don't know. I wish I did. I should know this, but I do not. I don't know how you dual wield in second edition. Certainly don't know how you would do it in first edition or older. But ignoring that, because I just don't know. Third edition. So third edition had a thing called feats. Without a feat, allow you to do cool stuff. Fifth edition has feats too, but we'll talk about that in a second. Feats allow you to do cool stuff. Without feats, dual wielding gave -4 on your main hand and -6 on your offhand. So let's just say you're a first level character. You have 2 short swords, because there's all kinds of rules about what kind of weapons you can wield as dual wielder. But let's just say you have a short sword in one hand and a short sword in the other hand. You can dual wield those without much problem. But then you get to this. Without the feats, dual wielding is a -4 on your main hand, so you're making attack rolls with a huge penalty, and a -6 with your on hand. So feats come about every other level, and this is especially true in the original third edition, not the revised third edition. That's another conversation for another time. So feats come about every other level. 3 feats required to reduce penalty to -2, -2. So the best you could hope for when dual wielding was to reduce your ability to do so to still being a slight penalty. And that was by design. Like, the whole mechanics of the game were built around like, well, if you get an extra attack, you're going to be that much more effective. Especially fighters would get built in like a bunch of attacks. Monks too were really crazy. So you might end up with something like 6 or 7 attacks, and hitting with just about all of them would like brutalize a character. Standard multi-attack was ablative. So let's just go with extreme example and say you had a 20th level fighter. Not factoring in bonuses, 20th level fighter would have a +20, +15, +10, +5, and they would get to do all of those attacks. Now, this is before you factor in strength bonuses, this is before you factor in magic item bonuses, this is before you factor in feats that give you extra bonuses, so on and so forth. So all over the place. Bonuses got ridiculous. Another topic for another time. So if you had dual wielding, it would look more like +18, +13, +8, +5, or sorry, +3, +3. Or no, actually, I believe it was actually something like you got 2 attacks at +18. So that instantly, like, this just shoots up your damage potential like crazy. And then that's what a fighter would do. They would just like wail on something with their magic weapon and have way better bonuses than what I'm showing, but this is kind of the progression. I don't know what dual wielding looked like in 4th edition. It was probably some kind of a power. I'm not going to get into that. I don't know a lot about 4th edition. It wasn't like this. I don't think it was anything like this. Like, probably you had a fighter power that was like, this turn you make 2 attacks, and that's it. That was the power. And so you didn't have to fuss, you didn't have to muss, you didn't have to like go through a feat tree to do it. 5th edition. To dual wield, you just have to hold a weapon in your second hand. There's no penalties, there's no feats required. That's it. You still are restricted to light weapons. Second attack does not get strength or dex bonus. So for instance, let's get your first level. You might have an attack at +5 that does a d6 +3. That's not outlandish. Second attack, or let's just call it offhand attack. You would get an attack at +5 that just does 1d6. No bonus. Just first attack does 1d6 +3. Second attack does the 1d6 with no bonus. So if you hit with both, you're basically doing the same as Great Sword Wielder. If you're a fighter, let's just take this to its logical conclusion like we did with the 3rd edition version. 20th level, 4 attacks, all at full bonus. So let's just pretend a fighter ends up with a +11 to hit, because that's what you would get if you had a full strength and everything. Times 4. So you just do 4 attacks with +11. 5th attack, +11 damage, but no bonus to damage. Okay, so okay. Anyways, this is a lot of math, and when you really start getting into the fiddly parts of even 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, it's just more math. But what this bears out is that it's actually better for a fighter to get 4 attacks with Great Sword, because you're potentially doing 8d6 damage. Greatsword does 2d6 damage. You hit 4 times, boom. Or you can get 5 attacks with Short Sword. Short Sword. I know how to type. At 5d6 damage. That's not as good. And like dual wielding does not benefit fighters. That's just this whole thing. Dual wielding greatly benefits rogues, and I can talk about that some other time. This is getting like too mathematically complicated. But the kernel of this is that they don't care if you dual wield in this game, because damage output is tied to class abilities. So fighters, multi-attack. Rogues, sneak attack. Paladins, smite. And so these are the ways that these characters create damage to what they need to. Rangers use complicated bullshit. And that could be its own stream, probably talking about why Rangers are effective but require like a spreadsheet to operate. But anyways, In 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, it is very easy to dual wield. Very easy. There's even a feat that will let you add that bonus to your second attack, which makes it more effective. If you pick up a couple of levels of Ranger, you can even wield 2 long swords, and that kind of brings in its own thing. So just the quick math on that is 5 attacks at, let's see, 5 attacks, which would be 5d8 plus 5d6, plus every one of those attacks would get bonus, so we're talking about 25. So that's a big difference. That makes it worth it. A ranger could dual wield and do all kinds of ridiculous stuff, but they have to set it up. They have to cast spells. They have to arrange things. Actually, well, that with a Colossus Slayer, that would be even 68. So that's outrageous. That's how crazy that is. But this is where the math comes in, and this is where it's like, if you're designing for this game, like I sometimes do, you have to take these things into consideration. And what's really silly is that this is a degree of optimization that most people don't even care about. Someone's just going to play the game and be like, I want to be a monk, and I want to punch stuff. It's like, well, do you want to take these abilities? I mean, no, I just want to punch stuff. Let me punch stuff. And then you don't care about, are you doing the most damage? Are you being the most effective you can be? Because that's not what this game is about, really. I mean, it can be. Go on YouTube, there'll be people talking to you about how there's trap options and how you are not serving your party if you don't pick A, B, and C as character abilities. I hate that, by the way. I think that's terrible. And I'm not giving you all of these numbers so that you think that I'm like, hey, this is what you should be doing. No, this is what you could be doing. I don't know. I feel like I've gone off topic. Short answer. It's very viable to dual wield in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Is it always the best option? No. Is it a fun option? Hell yes. It's a really cool option to do if you dual wield in D&D. And it's never been easier. Literally has never been easier up until this edition to just do it and not feel like you are getting penalized for wanting to do it. I hope that makes sense. I hope I didn't just blabber on and on about a bunch of dumb stuff. And while I'm kind of apologizing for my methodology of talking about all of this, any other questions are welcome. So if anybody's curious about any of this business, please let me know. And thinking about it, this is like way too complicated for what the actual question was. I should have just said yes. There's not a lot of like, just to the second part of that question, there's not a lot of limits on dual wielding in this edition. It's not difficult to do. I guess I should really kind of enumerate, like, what are the limitations? Well, the limitations are, without a special feature, both weapons must be light. So it's really easy to dual wield 2 daggers, for instance, or 2 short swords because they're considered light. But you can't have like a long sword and a short sword, or a long sword and a dagger, which would be really fun if you could do that, because you should. You should be able to do a long sword and a dagger, and you could be a swashbuckler, and that just feels right. I would allow someone to do that. I would not penalize them. The game would penalize them. I would not do that. No, that's reading from the chat. No, that's very fine. That's fine. Very well explained. Now I know it's a bit of a long shot to make a dwarf that can do double axing, and I appreciate the detailed answer very much. It's not that difficult as a dwarf. Get a dwarf with 2 hatchets. Hatchets are light weapons, do 1d6 damage, can be thrown very easily. I've seen people do double hatchets very effectively, and the fact that you could have, like, I don't know, if you're gonna be just like a super macho dwarf, donkey businessman, then you could just have like you could be festooned with hatchets and just throw them at every opportunity until you get close enough to just wail away on someone with those hatchets. And if you're a dwarven ranger, that would be a fantastic way to do it. If you're a dwarven fighter, maybe you could have the hatchets to throw up until you get up to the enemy, and then you bring out your great axe or your battle axe. Maybe you take the ability to wield 2 battle axes, and then you're going crazy. Then you're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. It's possible and very appropriate. In fact, I've seen a lot of people come up with dwarven dual wielding maces because they're like, well, I'm wielding blunt instruments and I'm at crotch level, so you tell me if you want to fight me. So that's always an interesting answer. But yeah, I mean, I don't get discouraged. It's not a long shot to make a dwarf that can dual wield axes. It's actually very easily done. And here's a little hidden gem that people don't know about. Barbarian. 3 attacks. Let's just call it 1d8. Add rage damage bonus and critical hits do more damage. So actually a barbarian dual wielding would do great. It would do amazing. Let's see. Oh yeah, I was thinking of the lines of double giant battle axes so he can do cool spinny shit. Yeah, you can do that. That's possible. You just have to go for a couple of extra in-game features and kind of do that. But yeah, you wouldn't be able to do great axes. That would be a little crazy. Doable, but crazy. But you could settle for battle axes. Basically the equivalent of a longsword. And then you would be... Let's just pretend you're a dwarven barbarian. You got all the features. You got 3 attacks with your battle axes. Plus, let's just call it 14 plus 3. Because I have to include that last bit for the rage damage. So we're looking at like an average of 3d8 plus 17, which is nothing to sneeze at. Actually, let's just put in great weapon fighting because that counts. We could do 3d8 plus 34 plus 3. Actually, plus 13. That's crazy. That's wild. Yeah, you could do that. And that would be viable. That would be a good way to do that. And more with crit. So let's say any one of those hits crit, like on a natural 20, then the dice would explode and you'd go from maybe 3d8 to 6d8. And all of a sudden you're matching ranger damage. That's how barbarians do. All right. And it's not a secret that Dungeons and Dragons just kind of tries to exploit the desire to emulate Lord of the Rings. You want to be Gimli on that bridge fighting off all those orcs? You fucking do it. You fucking do that shit all day long if you want. And Looney, I showed you Record of Lodoss Wars, so I think I forget if I said this when we were watching it, but Gimli is literally, or sorry, Gim from Record of Lodoss Wars is literally just named after Gimli from Lord of the Rings. He's just Gimli with the, well, I mean, he's not Gimli, but he's an homage to Gimli with the serial numbers spelled off. But yeah, that was a very silly and in-depth look into Dungeons and Dragons combat design. A lot of people don't realize it, but it's intricate for not being 4th edition. It's like there's some real number crunching that went into all of the class designs that makes all of them potentially very deadly and damage dealing. You don't have to try hard either. Like you can just do a lot of damage by accident as a player character. just as long as you do the things your character class was designed to do. Like if you try and play a rogue that doesn't sneak attack, then you're not going to have fun, likely, because you're not going to do the thing that your class was designed to do. If you don't do complicated bullshit as a ranger, you're not going to have fun, which is the hardest part. That's why people didn't like ranger for a long time. They didn't understand that it was a bunch of complicated bullshit to get them to where they got to be, and nobody built a blueprint for ranger in the book. Like the book didn't explicitly say this is how we designed these people to run. Instead, they let everyone figure it out, and eventually they did. But until then, everyone hated ranger. But yeah, I'm ready for the next question. If anyone has any questions, although we are at the hour mark, so we may stop soon. But I'm ready to entertain any more questions anyone may have. So please ask away. Let me know if you have any questions about Dungeons and Dragons, the games that I run, some odd bit of lore. Let's see from the chat. Yeah, it's probably because I've been playing way too much ninja shit recently, and I got the sudden mental image of a pissed off dwarf spinning like a lunatic wielding massive axes, lopping off limbs left and right, and it seemed cool. Oh, it absolutely seems cool. It seems major way hell of a fucking cool. I tried to buck trends by playing a dragonborn ranger that relied on strength, because most rangers rely on dexterity. Sure, I got a couple more cues. Yeah, please fire away. But this Pamachi, that was my dragonborn ranger. No, I take that back. That wasn't my dragonborn ranger. It was Pamachi was my fighter, my dragonborn fighter. I can't remember the Dragonborn Ranger that I played very briefly, but he was fun anyhow. It was like I didn't do longbow on that one like on purpose, and I only did thrown attacks, and that was very limiting. But I liked that limit. I liked trying to play within those parameters. And I mean, anybody watching who's like mildly curious about Dungeons and Dragons, like feel free to ask any questions. There's no bad question. If you're like, I've always wanted to play, but I don't know if I could do X, here's the place to ask. I've always wanted to play, but I don't know if I can use this character concept I thought of. Let me know. I've let some really crazy character concepts fly because I just thought they were interesting. The more invested a person is into their character, the better. And if somebody wants to play a sentient piece of toast and they can make it work, like if that's not going to be too silly billy loosey goosey where they're just going to be cracking jokes the entire time, go for it. Do it. Play a sentient piece of toast. As long as we could set parameters where you can interact with at least your peers and engage in combat in a way that's going to make sense, fine. I honestly don't care. If you want to be a Ratatouille, where you're the rat and you're just like manipulating your human into doing things, fucking do that. Fucking do that. I fucking dare you. I fucking dare you to do that. Make a video about it or a podcast about it. Since we're talking weapons, what is the most cringe weapon you've run into in your time doing D&D? I mean, Mahanzo Steel kind of stuff, like Sephiroth katana and such the like. Well, we're talking about katanas. There was a time, a long time ago, where a katana was a bad word in Dungeons and Dragons, because everybody wanted it to be like this mega super badass weapon that it wasn't. Everybody was like, because if you're sane, if you're willing to just like understand the game like on the level that it's supposed to be understood, a katana is a longsword. A longsword is a katana. That's reductionist, but that's how the game is. Because there's no such thing as quote unquote a longsword. There's no such thing as quote unquote a short sword. There's like a gladius, there's an epi, there's a broad. Well, no, that's not even a broadsword. There's a flamberger. There's a like. It gets so muddled, and you can't just say this one specific thing is a longsword. But at the end of the day, a katana is a longsword. Like, we're not gonna get too much more into the weeds. The game system doesn't, and never really has, accounted for like a katana being this like mythical awesome weapon that is like superior to every other edged weapon, like people in the late 90s or in the early 2000s wanted it to be. So there's that. Just the idea of a katana would used to drive people into like frothing, foaming rants. Whether it was people for the idea of the katana being badass or against the idea. Guns tend to be, I wouldn't lump them into cringe, but I think they cause a lot of arguments. The idea of a Dungeons and Dragons game having gunpowder is very controversial. Although the game at its onset had things like laser rifles and antimatter weapons, so whatever. But let me think. Like, I think there's just like some gimmicky weapons that just kind of get a little crazy. It used to be that the kukri was in this weird category of being like way better than it was supposed to be. Like, you could score mega criticals with a kukri, and so people would build their characters to just score criticals and do wacky damage with them. So that was a thing. I'm even just trying to think, like, I'm just trying to think of like the goofiest, dumbest weapon that people tried to make a thing, and not just like a one-off, but like as a matter of course. But no, I think that's really it. Dungeons and Dragons and Second Amendments. Yeah. Oh God, yes. It really kind of was that way. I don't care. I just throw gunpowder weapons into my game. It doesn't really fucking matter. It's a matter of aesthetics, and some people don't like the idea that like the world has advanced to that point when they don't realize that the Forgotten Realms is like in a Renaissance era style of technology for the most part. There's motherfucking gnomes building bicycles and shit. Like, get over yourself. If there's airships, there can be guns. If that hurts your suspension of disbelief, go play something else. Like, I'm sorry. My sorcerer cast shall not be infringed. Let's see. First time chatter from Philip Jokar. Environmental weapons and atom interaction weapons got tiring after a while back when people were hyped over them. Peasant railguns and the like. Ugh. Don't get me started on peasant railguns. Like, okay, we can all laugh about it, but somebody who actually tries to do it, like, it makes me want to punch them. I think somebody actually tried to pull that on me in a game recently. I'm like, get out of here with your fucking peasant railgun. And for those of you who don't know what peasant railgun is, let's see, sorry. Goofiest weapon. Goofiest weapon, katana, when idolized. Gunpowder is controversial. Some gimmick weapons are cringy. Kukri, 3-section staff, etc. But okay, peasant railgun. So the game's rules state that every character has the ability to have a free item interaction. So that item interaction might be opening a door, picking up an item, giving an item to another person. These are item interactions, and every character gets one free item interaction per turn. So the idea was that you get a line of peasants, and why peasants? Because they're plentiful. So then just get a line of peasants, have them pass, I don't know, let's just say a spear, a rock, whatever. It doesn't honestly matter. So you start at one end, one peasant uses their free item interaction to pass to the next person, who then uses their item interaction to give to the next person, all the way down the line until you get to the end. And the theory is, because this has all happened within the span of 6 seconds, you've accelerated this item down a line at a ridiculous breakneck speed so that the last person then throws it with all of its kinetic energy, and then that would do tremendous amounts of damage. Now that's all real ridiculous mechanics manipulating hokum. Obviously that doesn't work that way. We're just taking like this weird rule that's supposed to make the game be a little bit more verisimilitudious. I don't know how you would say that. Anyways, it's supposed to make the game work better, function better. So there's no question about like, oh, I'm going to open this door. What's it? Is that an action? Is that not an action? Does it take my bonus action? Can I use my action to open 2 doors? And so then it obviates that by saying, okay, you get one free item use. After that's an action to do. Boom. You can open 2 doors on a turn because one of them is free. The other one is your action. Your fighter, action surge, open 3 doors. That's a powerful ability. Anyway, the fact that that by the rules you can do that is just a dint of silliness. But like, you're not gonna get like that's just physics doesn't work that way, and D&D isn't meant to replicate physics. But still, like, that's just a breach of etiquette to try and do something like that, because it's obviously not the intent of the rule. It's just a silly bit. But yeah, anything that people try and do that's kind of like this weird ridiculousness. Now, I'll allow someone to use the environment to their advantage. If someone's like, hey, is there a big rock on the cliff above us? I'm like, sure. You want to drop that rock on the bad guy? Do it. You can find a way to drop that giant rock on there. Like, that's cool, and I will have that cost like 1 or more actions, and it'll be worth it. But I want you to do that. I want you to manipulate the environment in that way, in a way it was meant to be done. But not Peasant Railgun. Peasant Railgun is like, it makes me think of 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons, where you get things like Pun Pun, or like infinite strength gain, or all kinds of ridiculous, wacky, game-breaking things. Like, sure, it works within the rules, but like, don't be a jerk. Don't bend the rules because you want to do this thing that should be impossible with good sense and good taste. But anyways, not that I'm accusing you of that, Philip, obviously, but yeah, when somebody tried to pull that on me the other day, it made my blood run hot. Whatever. Anyways, that's enough of that. Any other questions? Excuse me. To leapfrog on the joke from earlier, Looney, my wizard casts Stand My Ground. And by the way, I should have said this earlier when there were more people from the raid, but consider throwing a follow. I do this on Mondays. I play Final Fantasy V on Tuesdays. I'm thinking about changing up my schedule because Thursdays used to be a day to play Final Fantasy V, but it's gotten untenable. Got another one if you're up for it. Yeah, I'm up for it, Looney. Do it. But I'm trying to find a third day to do streaming for, I don't know. I might do video game streaming. I might do another D&D related stream. I'm still trying to figure it out, but we'll figure it out. For right now, Mondays and Tuesdays. That's what I got. That's what I'll give you. My ranger uses castle doctrine, which makes shooting free. Oh my god. Yes. See, I was trying to think of what the name for that was, but yeah, castle doctrine. Oof. Yes. And nobody else be shy. If anybody has any D&D related questions, please. What's the best site to filter for finding an online campaign these days? I've been playing in one shots in different communities for the past couple of years. Figure I should stop stalling and find a new group. Yeah, it's hard to really say. There are a lot of options out there that I would recommend, but I went through a lot of different options before I found some of my groups. Um, Pre-COVID, I might have said go play Adventurers League, and you might kind of fall in with a group because that's one of the things I ended up doing. But let me kind of like lay out the options. So if you play D or if you use D&D Beyond, they have forums, and those forums are decent, not great, but decent at finding groups. You can sometimes use Twitter to find D&D groups. And if that sounds daunting, then don't worry about it. But if you want to throw a thing out there, sometimes you can be like, "Hey, I can't play. I can't find a group." Twitter will take care of you. Like Twitter, if you can get your post seen, and I'd be happy to retweet for you. There's a lot of people out there on Twitter. That's kind of a weird long shot way of doing it, but like I've seen people get like a lot of responses because the community wants to help. The community wants to do that. Probably the best slash most complicated way to do it is to get on some discords. So find a discord. There's like the official D&D discord, which is easy to find and get onto. That might be a good place. There's the official Adventures League discord, which sounds weird, but that is a separate thing. You might be able to find groups there. All kinds of different discords, but if you can find a good discord community, you will find a good D&D group. Because they're out there. And if you are interested, I can invite you to my Discord, and I can then show you other Discords and at least get you in touch with a number of groups that would be interested. And there's all kinds of them out there because I actually went through a bout of trying to help people find the D&D group. In fact, if you even want to like follow me on Twitter and shoot me a DM, I'd be happy to like get you connected with a group because that's a thing I do. But yeah, there's all kinds of different ways. I know there's all kinds of different methods and groups and forums and online communities. But really, like Discord and like community forums, and like maybe places like Facebook. Facebook might be better than Twitter, and you'll never hear me say that about hardly anything ever again, ever. But Facebook might be better than Twitter in the sense of finding a D&D group because you can literally just join a Facebook group that'll be like D&D online games, and then there's going to be like 1,000 people on there, and they will find you a group. Another not so recommended way is like if you play Roll20. That's just a for instance. There's other VTTs out there, virtual tabletops. But if you play Roll20, they have their own looking for group section. That one's been hit or miss. That one's weird. I've never had luck with that, but you might. I don't know. Also, I haven't looked in 2 years, so I don't know if it's gotten better. But that's an option. But anyways, let me read this second question. Okay, or this next question. Okay, so what's a thing a player of yours has done that's been pleasantly whimsical surprise? As in, I wasn't expecting such a nice, wholesome outcome for this campaign kind of thing. There's a lot, honestly. So let me write that down. So, ways of finding online groups. God, take longer, would you? Okay. Discord, Facebook, D&D Beyond. Forums, etc. What is a way in which a player prized me with wholesome whimsy? I'm trying to think of some kind of neat ways that has happened, especially recently. And I'm thinking back to my Eberron campaign because I think that if it was going to happen, it happened there. That I can think of recently. No. Here's the thing. Okay, here's one. So my Icewind Dale campaign, Rime of the Frost Maiden. Come on. Actually, that goes even further. So my Curse of the Crimson Throne, which was like part one of the two-part campaign. Group took Mutated Giant, gave him a random potion, literally random effect. Rolled 100 on a D100 and turned the giant into a red dragon wormling that became a close ally. So, and I forget if I was streaming that game. I think I was, and I don't know if you happen to have been watching, Looney. You might remember, maybe if I was and you did, but I can't remember. But there was a giant that was mutated, and so he was just meant to be like an enemy that they were going to fight and kill because he was like mutated by a disease, and that was kind of that. One of the players who was a bard is like, well, I just want to throw this random potion at him and see what happens. And I was like, he's already mutated, so this potion is going to have like a greater effect. Like it's going to mix, the potion's chaos is going to mix with the mutation's chaos, and it could potentially be very bad for you. I didn't say that, I was thinking it. But then the roll came, and I was like, 100 on a D100. I don't see that terribly often. So I decided I'm going to turn him into whatever's on page 100 of the monster manual. So I looked in the monster manual, page 100. If I'm not mistaken, and I'm grabbing my monster manual so I can be sure that I wasn't like being dumb about this, but page 100 of the monster manual is a dragon, although it's a white dragon, so I don't remember why I did a red dragon. Maybe I didn't roll 100, but it was something crazy. Let me look. But anyways, memory is completely shot. No worries. I just wondered if it rang a bell. But something like that. That's more or less what happened. Maybe it was just a dragon and I decided to be a red dragon. But anyways, so he did that, and instead of killing the giant, which is totally what they were supposed to do, just kill it and you know, make it not suffer anymore, because it was like a the giant was basically infected by La Plaga. But anyways, instead of killing him, they turned him into a red dragon wormling, and he was like a super close ally and fought with them through thick and thin and became a really valued member of the party. And even with that, I even allowed the dragon to grow a couple of size categories magically. Normally it takes hundreds of years, but I just thought I would do that. Eventually the dragon became, like, I want to say, like a young dragon, very powerful, very, very potent member of the group, and helped fight in some of the final battles of the final campaign. And it was really cool. Like those are just surprises that happen. Usually it's dice driven. Usually a surprise is like, holy cow! Like the dice just told a story. Like having someone like most recently in the Wednesday game with Sojaro and Co. They rolled 3 19s in a row while sitting on a fortune telling chair. And so I'm like, something needs to happen with that. So I made the chair disappear, and it's going to go on a magical dimensional journey, and the results of which they won't know for quite some time. But I want to have it be something special, because sometimes just having wacky dice rolls makes me compelled to do something out of the ordinary and interesting, and just kind of alters the story in a way that I think tends to be fun. Because those are the touchstones. It's like when you're playing D&D or any given role-playing game, and like a really neat number comes up, whether it's a critical hit or just something unbelievable like exploding dice or just rolling a bunch of ones in a row and so on. You want that to be a story. You don't want it just to be like, wow, that was weird. You want it to be like, oh, and then this wacky thing happened. And I never want the wacky thing to be deleterious to the group. I'd never want it to be like, oh, the cave collapses and you all die because you all rolled 5 ones in a row. I could do that, but I hate stuff like that. I'd rather it be interesting. I'd rather it be a story that they tell for months, if not years to come, to be like, this one time I rolled 5 ones and a portal opened up into the city of Brass. That's more interesting than like, I rolled 5 ones in a row and I slipped on a stairway and broke my neck. I'd be in all rights to like let 5 ones in a row be like, well, you slipped and broke your neck on nothing, but that'd be incredibly dumb. That'd be like really terrible. Okay, we're at an hour and 30. Quite a bit longer than I thought we'd be today, because I was just kind of like doing a little bit of maintenance on this. Does anybody have any other questions before we settle up for the night? Any burning inquiries? Any big ideas that you might be interested in? Any other avenues that you might wish to explore? What's funny is that I can probably go back and look up that dice roll that turned Lenny into a giant, or I'm sorry, turned Lenny into a dragon, because I still have all of the at least the dice roll logs for that game. So I might do that after the stream. I won't bore you with the details of my miraculous escape. All right. So I never want to be long in the tooth, even though I sometimes am. We'll go ahead and stop for tonight, as I don't believe that there are any burning questions, but save them for next week if you're willing to come back. And we will continue our exploration of video game, of D&D planning. Maybe we'll draft up another monster or a magic item. In fact, I should use this time. I'm silly. I should use this time to make the magic items that I keep promising my various players, but I didn't, and so I'm silly. Yeah, I love those wacky critical failure cascade stories. That one that used to circulate on 4chan about the guy whiffing and attacking ogre, failing and ending up groping said ogre, and the story ending up in marriage. Yeah. See, those are more fun. That's what I prefer. Shouldn't end in failure. It should end up in like a failure so silly that nobody can be mad about it. Anyway, I was already wrapping up. So there we are. Follow if you haven't followed. Fresh out of queues. No worries. It's good timing to be out of questions. Follow if you haven't followed. Join us next time if you can. I do stream on Tuesdays with Final Fantasy V. We're just on the verge of finishing it. I think I've been enjoying it, but I think it's finally time to finally conclude that game. And then we'll be back next week with more D&D planning. Hopefully, I will have run all of my games, or at least a majority of them, and we'll kind of figure it out. And we'll talk about all of that then, and we will entertain more questions. So, all right, y'all. This is it. We are ending the stream here, and I want you all to remember, I plan and play games for you.